Hello everybody, we are back with another set of notes that are going to go in Unit 2. So go ahead and grab the Unit 2 tab and flip to your table of contents. So we did page 18 last time, so now we're going to be on page 19. And in today's set of notes, we're going to be talking about what is slope. So these are our notes, the title of them. And so by the end of this video, you should be able to tell me what slope is and how to find it. So go ahead and write that down. And then you'll need to flip to page 19 in your notebook. And then here's what the notes actually look like. So it's a full sheet of paper. You will need to fold it in half and tape it down. So I'm going to give you a minute or so to work on that and get that taped down. I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, so your notes should be taped down, and so now we're going to start our notes. So remember, at the end of this video, you should be able to tell me what slope is and then how to find it. So we're going to talk about what it is first. So the slope of a line is the measure of its steepness. And how I think about this, like real life slope would be like a hill. If you were to walk up a hill, based on how steep that hill is, that talks about the steepness of the slope, okay? So it says every straight line can be classified as having one of the four types of slope. So there are four types of slope, and so I'm going to tell you what those are. So the first one is, like, this is a hill, okay, and we're walking up the hill. This would be considered positive slope. So we have positive slope. And so we can be walking up the hill just like this with positive slope. The other one is down the hill, so that's negative. So negative slope. Another option that we have, so we have positive up the hill, negative is down the hill. We have flat, which is called zero slope. So this would be like flat land. There is zero slope to this land. And then the fourth type is the vertical one, okay? This one is called undefined. So anytime you see a straight up and down line, that has undefined slope. Okay, so normally if you were in class with me, I would have played like a 2-minute long video called The Adventures of Slope Dude. So if you want to pause this video right here and go watch that, you can find it on YouTube. Just type in Adventures of Slope Dude. It's like the first video that pops up. It's like 2 minutes and 12 seconds long. But I'm going to briefly go over what it is. So it says The Adventures of Slope Dude help us to remember the 4 different types of slope. So here's the track that Slope Dude, his adventure, his little ski adventure. I'm going to give you the way less fun version of The Adventures of Slope Dude. Here's my Slope Dude, okay? So he's going skiing. So I drew him some little skis and little ski sticks to help him. So when he goes up the slope, so he's skiing up the mountain, he would say, use a different color, he would say puff, puff, positive. So going up the mountain, it's hard work, he says puff, puff, positive. Okay? So going up the mountain, he says puff, puff, positive, because he's going up the mountain. Well, it gets to the very top and then starts his descent down the hill, and he says nice negative. Nice negative as he goes down the hill. Because no, not a lot of work. Nice negative all the way down. Okay? Then he gets to this flat part. And if you've ever been skiing, moving across a flat piece is actually zero fun. And that's what Slope Dude would say. He says, this is zero fun. And it actually is. So if you've ever been skiing, you know this part of the ski trip sucks when you have to move across flat land. Well, in the video, he says, this is zero fun. This is zero fun as he goes across the flat land. Well, then he gets to the edge and he doesn't see this massive cliff right here. And he falls off the cliff yelling the worst curse word in math, which is undefined. So as he's falling down this cliff, he yells, undefined. Okay? And those were the Adventures of Slope Dude. You got the Coach Stecker version instead of the real one, so if you want to, go watch the real one. Just type in Adventures of Slope Dude. 2-minute video. It's worth it. But these are the 4 types of slope. So he's going to say puff, puff, positive up the hill. Then he says nice, negative when he skis down the hill. Right here it says this is 0 fun. That's because he's going across flat land. And then when he gets to the cliff and falls off the cliff, he says undefined as he goes down. Okay? So it's just a funny video. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. It just helps you to remember the 4 types of slope. Okay? So those were the Adventures of Slope Dude. Now I have a little note down here that says slope may also be called, because it's not always called slope. A lot of kids, when they come out of middle school, they remember this equation right here, y equals mx plus b. Slope is the m in this equation. So this is slope. So it could also be referred to as just m. When we're graphing them, a lot of kids remember rise over run, because your middle school teacher told you that in order to graph some points, and we're actually going to see that in our next set of notes. We have rate of change. We see this one a lot. So anytime you see rate of change, that's talking about the slope of the line. And then another one that's used a lot is delta y over delta x, which that is just the change in y over the change in x. That's what this delta, it's a triangle, it's said delta, so when you see it, it's just delta y over delta x. And that means the change in y values over the change in x values. So these are the most common types of slope that we see in high school and in Algebra 1. We see rate of change, and they may ask you delta y over delta x, but you're going to see rate of change the most, so make sure you know that one. Okay? So now that we know what slope is, what it can be called, the inside of this foldable is just for us to practice some problems, finding slope. So, since this is on the right-hand side, you may have to like pull the paper over so that way you can actually write on it. That's what I'm going to do. So, the left-hand side, the first little problems that we're going to be doing, we are finding slope from points or a table. So we have some ordered pairs, which are points. We have an XY table, and then example 3 is another set of ordered pairs that we have to find. So I want you to remember, which we just talked about this, slope can also be referred to as delta y over delta x. And I want to rewrite what that actually stands for, so that way we all know. It's going to be the change in y over the change in x. So that's what this delta means. Delta means change in. And now we can just start with some examples. So example 1, check that out. So it says, find the slope of the line that passes through the points 5, 2, and negative 10, 5. So what I want to do, very first thing, and this is what I still do to this day, when I see 2 ordered pairs, I need to kind of label them as like first ordered pair, second ordered pair. So here's what I do. This is my x value of my first ordered pair. This is my y value of my first ordered pair. So this is x1, y1. So this one would be x2, because this is my x value of my second ordered pair, and this is y2. So x1, y1 they just tell you that it's talking about the first ordered pair. x2, y2 is talking about the second ordered pair. That's all there is to it. So what we need to do is just come up with slope. So I'm going to use the letter M because that actually stands for slope. So remember that it's the change in y over the change in x. So we're going to write several of these so that way our brain is kind of thinking, hey, these are all the same thing. So now let's actually talk about the change in our y value. So these are the same thing. So now let's do the change in our y value. Now, when we're talking about the change in y value, first of all, we're only talking about the y values. So we're talking about 2 and 5. We need to know what is the change between those numbers. So that means on a number line, and you can think about it as the number line. On a number line, we are going from 2 to 5, and we need to know what's the change between those two numbers. So 1, 2, 3. So it's a positive 3. Now we need to know change in x's, which change in x, that's talking about the x value. So we need 5 and negative 10 for that one. So again, on the number line, so this one's going to be a little bit bigger to draw. On a number line, we have negative 10 down here, negative 5, 0, and 5, okay? I'm trying to go, oh, you can't see it, sorry. I'm trying to move from 5 to negative 10. So each one of these gaps, the way that I've drawn it is 5. So 5, 10, 15. But I went in the negative direction, so this is going to be negative 15. So draw a number line if you have to. Please draw a number line. I would rather you take a couple extra seconds to draw a number line than to get it wrong. And then the only thing that you should always check for is if you can simplify. And we can actually simplify this one, so we're going to do that. So 3 over 15 simplifies to 1/5. Okay, 3 over 15 simplifies to 1/5. And then I have to deal with this negative. Anytime you have a negative, and there's only one negative, you need to put it with the numerator. It's going to make your life a lot easier, especially when we go to graph it. So we always want a fraction. Please never give me a decimal when we're talking about slope, because slope is also rise over run. So now I can actually take this and graph it, which that's the next part. And then what kind of slope is this? It's going to be negative because of this negative sign right here. So on a graph, it's going to look like this, going down the hill. Okay, let's talk about example number 2, and then I'm going to let you do example number 3 on your own. So example 2 says find the slope of the line represented by this table. So remember, slope is the change in y over the change in x. So we need to know what's the change happening in the y value. So on this table, y is on the bottom. So when we look, you're looking for the pattern that's happening right here. The pattern, we went from 11 to 9 to 7 to 5. This is a -2 pattern. So that means the change in y is -2 or -2. And now we need to get the change in x, which is on the top. So again, we're just checking for the pattern to see if there is one. And this one actually has one. And it is +3 each time. So that's your change in the x values that's happening. So we have +3. And again, we need to check to make sure that we can simplify, and we need to do it if we can, which when we look at -2 over 3, 2/3 doesn't simplify, so we're actually going to be done with this one. Remember, do not change it to a decimal, leave it as the fraction. And this type of slope is also negative because it has the negative symbol. So I have another negative. And then example 3, I want you to pause this video and work on example 3, and then when you're done, push play, and I'll have the correct answer for you to check it. So go ahead and do that now. Okay, and as promised, here is example number 3. So remember, it's change in y over change in x. So I need to look at my y values first, which I've highlighted in yellow. So I went from -4 to +4, and that's 8 numbers. So that's 8, change of 8. And then change in x, I just went from 0 to 3, so that's a change of 3. So this is an improper fraction, which is completely okay to have. Please never change them to a mixed number if we are talking about slope. Slope, leave as the improper fraction, because remember, it's always rise over run, so we need the improper fraction. And so this slope is going to be positive, because this is a positive 8 over positive 3. So it's a positive slope. And that's how you find slope from points or a table. Real simple. You really have to focus on the change in y over change in x on those. And so now we're going to do the right-hand side, which is finding slope from a graph. So this is where the rise over run part happens. And I'm going to tell you that when we do this, a lot of times we make a right triangle. So we're going to be looking at a triangle on the graph, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So the rise part is the height of the triangle. So it's the height of the triangle that you're going to draw. And the run would be the width of the triangle that you're going to draw. Which this will make sense in just a second. I just want you to have that written down. And then here are a few reminders that whenever we go and actually start finding slope on a graph, this is what we need to keep in the back of our minds. We need to always count spaces and not lines. If you end up counting lines, you may be short one or you may have one too many. So be careful and count spaces. The second dot says always blank. This is always simplify if you can. Sometimes you won't be able to, and that's completely fine, but if you can simplify the fraction, you need to. And then the third one, it just says ask yourself WWSDS. That means what would slope dude say? So let's write that down, and then I'll explain what I actually mean by that. What would slope dude say? So what would slope dude say? So here's what I mean by that. Take a look at this very first one up here on the left. By looking at this one, automatically, we should be able to identify what type of slope it is. We may not be able to tell the fraction part, but we should be able to identify that this is negative slope because, remember, slope dude, little slope dude would be skiing down this hill right here. So that's what I mean when I say negative. So when we actually find slope, it needs to be a negative number. So this has negative slope. So I'm going to go ahead and write that. And then I'll actually find what the slope actually is. So here's the important part when you're doing these. And I'm going to try to zoom in so that way I can really show you. So on this one, we have a line, and you need to make sure that when you choose 2 points, we need always 2 points. You're looking for the spot where it crosses the boxes right in the corner. So we're looking at this one, and then we'll go with this one over here. So 3, 0, because those are normally the first two that we see. So here's the triangle part that I was talking about. So now I have my 2 dots. I need to figure out the rise over run part. So here's how I always do it. I draw a triangle, just a right triangle. So I have to go down on this one, and then I need to go over to the right 6 spaces. So now what we'll do is we will count how many these are and keep up with them. So the first one that we have to do is the rise. So take a look at this little spot right here. We need to count spaces and not lines. So when we do this, there's 1, 2. So this one is 2, but it's going to be negative 2 because we went down 2 spaces. So remember, when you go down, it's got to be negative. Then we just need to count these over here. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this one is 6 spaces, and this is going to be a positive 6 because we moved over to the right. And so now I just need to build my fraction. So I'll do it down here. So m is equal to, remember it's always rise over run. So the rise part right here has to come first. So this is negative 2 over 6. And this, I've already drawn the equal sign because this actually can simplify. These are both even numbers, so we need to simplify this. And this just simplifies to negative 1 over 3. And so now, what I can do to just check and make sure that I'm actually right is this is negative 1 over 3, and I originally said it was negative slope. So I got something that seems to be correct. Okay? Now let's take a look at the one on the right. This one is kind of hard to see on this video, but you should be able to see it better on your paper. The line that we're talking about is right here. So this one is the straight horizontal line. And if you think about what Slope Dude would say, this is just 0 slope. So m is equal to 0 on this one. This is just 0 slope. This is the long flat part where he was skiing. Okay, bottom left, we have this line right here. It's probably easier to see on your paper. We have this line right here. This is the straight vertical line. So this would have been the straight vertical cliff that Slope Dude fell off of. And this one, the slope is undefined. Because remember, Slope Dude fell off the cliff and yelled undefined. So we have undefined. So these two that we just did, the slope of 0 and slope of undefined, those are very quick to identify. You just have to remember the horizontal one is 0, the vertical one is undefined. And then now we have this one down here. And so when I first look at this one has a very steep slope because if Slope Dude was going to be trying to ski this is a very steep mountain. So I automatically know that this is positive. So at the end, I should have m is equal to a positive number. So we'll have to just double check to make sure it ends up being positive. So remember, we now need to pick 2 points on our line. That way we can identify what the slope is. And remember that the points have to be on the corner of a box. So the first one I want to grab is that 2, 2 right here. 2, 2. And then the other one, like 1, negative 1, that's a good one. So we'll grab that one. So I have my 2 dots. So now I'm going to create my right triangle. And I'll remember the rise part always needs to come first. So I'm going to start on the left dot and I'm going to rise however many I've got to in order to be on the same line as that one. And then I'm just going to draw a line straight over to it. So there's my right triangle. So now all I have to do is count spaces now. So this is 1, 2, 3. So this is going to be, and this is a positive 3 because I went up 3 spaces. If I went down, it would be negative. I went up 3, and then I'm going to go to the right 1. So then down here, we got to come up with the number. So m is equal to, remember it's always rise over run. So we rose 3, and we run 1. Now, I do want to tell you, you are never going to see a number over 1. They're always going to simplify that even further, and you're just going to see 3. You need to know, though, that these are the same thing. Anytime you see a whole number like this, you can always put it over 1. Okay? So, this video covered what slope was. We talked about what it was, the 4 types of slope, and then we also covered how to actually find it by ordered pairs, tables, and from a graph. So this is all that we're going to talk about with slope. The next set of notes, we're going to actually use slope to graph functions, but you need to know what slope is and how to find it before we can graph. Good job today.